we're here for a lunchtime Yin Yoga class. So this is Yin Yoga, which is a slower, more relaxed pace. We're going to do some poses that largely focus on the outer hips and inner thighs today. So with that in mind, we're going to start in a reclining butterfly pose. And I'm going to use this pillow to create a little bit of a lift so that I get a little bit of a shoulder release as well. Since we're going to focus mostly on the hips, it's a nice idea to give yourself just a little bit of love for your shoulders. So this is a smallish bolster. Actually, I'm trying to remember what they call this. I don't think they call it mini, but they might. And it's a reasonable bolster. If you don't have bolsters but you wish you did, this one is less than $30, and sometimes they have free shipping if you buy so much stuff, or sometimes just free shipping. The company is called Yoga Accessories. I have no affiliation with them, but they're a local Richmond company, which is where I live, and so, you know, giving some love to the local peeps. In any case, the mini bolster is really nice. You could also use a pranayama bolster, which is almost anyone makes. They're skinnier, a little bit shorter than this. Or you can take a blanket and roll the blanket up, and that'll give you a lift similarly. So you just, you know, give yourself a little lift in the heart. Now, if you would not want to do that, you just want to lay on the floor, that's also legal. You can do whatever you like. All right, so I'm gonna use the blanket under my thighs, and then I'm gonna use this bolster. Now, the way I'm positioning myself on here is I've got the bolster about at the bottom of my biggest rib, right? So there's probably a couple little floater ribs down below there, although I might be about in that same area. But I want my rib cage resting on the bolster. And then once my knees are open and my inner thighs are stretching, I want to pull the blanket up so that I just feel the sensation. So with Yin, we don't want to go to the point where we almost can't stand it. That's actually an area where we can get injured. We really want to start the pose right at the point where it's like nothing, nothing, nothing. Oh, there I feel something. Right there. That's the edge, okay? So if I don't feel anything, I don't feel anything. That's all safe territory. You can stay in that territory. Go right to the point where you're like, oh, now I feel that shape. That's the point we start. Now, that being said, over time, that might shift. So as we're holding the pose, my inner thighs are going to relax a little bit, and then I might not feel it anymore, at which point I can adjust the blanket, okay? So I get back to that, oh, I just feel it place. Now with the arms, you can go out wider, and that's going to pull more on the chest muscle. I'm going to stay in tighter, so that what I'm actually releasing are the deep stabilizing muscles of the shoulder, so the pec minor, the little bit of the anterior deltoid, but even the shoulder blade, the muscles that come off the shoulder blade, because the shoulder blade's hanging off in space a little bit, that'll give me a little release in all the muscles that hold my arm bone into my shoulder socket. And so, oh, it feels nice. And it feels like it helps my posture as well, because sometimes leaning over the desk while you're working makes your arm bone want to go forward. So this is a nice way to let it drop back. We'll stay with this guy for about, let's say about 3 more minutes. We're going to commit to this pose. Now, if you find out, like, if it starts to feel really uncomfortable or pokey or whatever, there might be a burning sensation, numbness, or tingling. If you just are feeling like, oh, this is just not right, listen to those instincts and adjust your body. And then come back to letting go and relaxing into it. Sometimes for me, I have to get the elbows just right. I have a funny angle to my elbows. So finding that spot where my elbows are bent at the right amount sometimes takes a few moments. I like to joke that I'm built like Tyrannosaurus Rex. I've got tiny little arms, and big tail, and big mouth, tiny little arms. Getting my little Tyrannosaurus Rex arms just right. Takes a minute. But now, I feel like like I've kind of adjusted it. Now my shoulders are feeling that kind of sweet heaviness. So the arm bones are dropping back and my shoulder blades are finding their way. So there's this moment about a minute into every pose where I sort of feel, it's almost like a downshifting. There's just a little change in the body that feels suddenly more relaxed. If you don't get that, definitely, or you just feel uncomfortable, make changes. This happens again for me about 3 or 4 minutes in, and then again like around 7 or so minutes if I hold the poses that long. So there's little places where you feel the body change and shift. Just notice those places. Goes back to your to-do list or stuff you've got to get done, just pull it on back to the breath. Stay with the pose. All that stuff will be there when you're finished here. We'll stay for about another minute. Your exhale, you're going to straighten out the legs. So I'm going to bring my knees together first, and then I'm going to straighten out my legs, and I can leave that blanket there or slip it out. Now we're going to come to a seated position. So for right now, I'm just going to pause. I'm going to roll to my side, and then bring myself up. Now, usually what happens when I use something like this is that my back sort of feels like it's still in the little fish pose. So I'm going to take a couple of moments just to sort of move my rib cage around, little sort of baby cat-cow shapes. Circle the shoulders. Oh, that feels good. Okay, now you can use the pillow, you can use a blanket, you can use a block if you need a prop for this next pose. So the pose we're going to do is called the shoelace or the square, depending on how you organize your legs. So if you organize your legs so that for the most part the shins are resting on top of each other, when you look down, your thighs make kind of a square. So that's the square pose. If you organize your legs so that when you look down, your legs make more of a triangle, so the feet come around, the knees stack up. I have to elevate my hips to make that happen at all. That's called the shoelace. I guess somehow it looks like the shoelaces are coming together in a triangle. Anyway, in the regular yoga world, it's called cow face pose. I'm not sure that's much better. All right, given all of that silliness, organize your legs in one of those fashions. Now, what this does for most of us is it stretches this outer part of the hip, okay? So you want to feel something there. It's a little bit spicy, but not so spicy that you find yourself tensing up or that it feels like it causes trouble for your knees sockets, okay? So you can use other props, like I'm gonna put a blanket under this thigh just so it has some structure and support. If it feels spicy when you sit up, don't go anywhere. If it doesn't feel at all, lean into it. You can take yourself all the way forward until your elbows touch the ground. You probably shouldn't try to go past that point. I don't know how you would. But that's a possibility as well, okay? So you can go into the pose a little deeper, or you can stay a little more shallow. Just what is the sensation like? So we're avoiding any sensations in the knee. You want to feel that kind of in the muscly, big area. So there's a lot of connective tissue in the hips. So each muscle is wrapped in fascia, and when muscles touch each other, there's layers of fascia on top of each other, right? So muscle, 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 layers and layers and layers of fascia. And when we get to the hips, we're talking about as much as 6 layers of fascia when we get to this outer part of the hip. That's a lot. In between every layer of fascia, it lives hyaluronic acid. That hyaluronic acid doesn't just stay, it's not just hermetically sealed, it also penetrates the tissue in certain places. And some of the really coolest things I've seen are these laparoscopic surgery pictures where they go through the fascia and you can see like little beads of water and things like that. So what pulls water into the connective tissue is hyaluronic acid. That's why they put it in wrinkle cream. You put it on your face and the water flows to the surface. You look all cute and 20-something. Probably not in my case, but you get the idea. So anyway, so what we're doing really with yin is we're trying to stimulate that hydrating practice. So we want the tissue to slide around on it a little bit easier, so the hips feel a little more mobile, feel a little more viscous. That does not take a lot of pressure, right? It just takes being like slightly uncomfortable, so we feel the tension, we feel that little bit of something, but not so far that it causes trouble, okay? So we're gonna stay here for another minute. I've been chatting you up, so time went by. But the thing that we're after is not to tear our connective tissue off of its moorings. The thing we're after is to hydrate that tissue, allow it to move more smoothly so that we feel a little more mobile physically. And then the mental practice here is to be present in the moment. Keep coming back to the present moment. Keep breathing, keep coming back. I find that this is a little more challenging to stay mentally present than the flow classes, because the flow class is changing all the time. So you are in a pose and then you're in another pose and then you're in another pose. So your mind stays, it's easier to stay focused with your brain. But with something like this, it's a little easier to drift off to your normal thinking patterns, so it's more meditative. You're actually working to stay present. Okay, we're gonna take a big breath. You're gonna lift up at the top of that inhale, lean back, exhale, unwind the leg. Ooh. We're gonna shimmy that out. Now, that leg that was on top, we're gonna stay with that leg, and we're gonna do another pose in this same kind of family, and that's gonna be a swan. Now, I'm gonna do the swan face down today, but you can lay on your back, put that left leg up on top of the right leg, and hug the legs in, and that's a way for you to get this pose a little more gently. So, taking this blanket, I'm gonna fold it up, and that's gonna go under my hip. Now, you may not need a blanket, but I find it helpful. So, because it sort of levels my pelvis out. And then I'm gonna use my other props as an elbow rest. So now I feel the stretchy area in the same area, that outer hip, but I also have a little bit of opening here. If I prop myself up a little higher, that's a little bit more true. And you might feel this in your inner thigh as well. I'm gonna stay for a few minutes. So this pose is for me a little spicier, right? So along the way, if it feels like it's too spicy, I can come out and go onto my back. And again, I'm feeling for, is there numbness or tingling? Are there burning sensations? Especially in the joint, those are tricky. And then is anything just inherently feel like I'm doing damage? If you get that message, your body is communicating to you. Listen to that message and back off. every now and then, check in with yourself. We're about halfway through here. Just check in. Are you still present? Should you bring your mind back from wherever it wandered off to? My mind tends to wander, so I have to be vigilant. Keep bringing it back. So we're going to stay for one more minute. Two more breaths. Just come on back. Do 2 big breaths. With your exhale, kind of let yourself lean into that bent leg hip just a little bit. Lean back into it. Bring the back leg around if you can, and then we're just gonna dismount that pose and take a moment, about a minute, just to kind of move the legs a little bit. You can do little circles with your feet. You can do little cat shapes with your back. Alright. Just a little bit longer here. Now, I'm just gonna get my props kind of ready to go. We're gonna do the same 2 poses, just on the other side. I wait for this kind of feeling of everything sort of settling. It usually takes somewhere between 45 seconds and a minute. So now, last time I had my left leg on top, now I'm gonna put the right leg on top. So I'm gonna put that up, and again, I use a little block in front, just because when I do this, which I can do, my ankle joint pushes into my inner thigh, and I don't like the way that feels. So a block helps. You can also put like a blanket or something on your thigh. I did that for a long time, and then I discovered the block. I like the block better. So get your legs organized. Sit up tall. See how that feels. Lean a little bit. See how that feels. You might find the just right kind of amount. If you go too far, back off. And we're looking for that, like, oh, I feel something. Not too much, not too little. Right in the middle. Just right. Just feel it. Minute or so. So just check in with yourself. Sometimes I find little pockets of tension I didn't realize I even had around the neck, or sometimes like I'll find my mouth tighten up. So just kind of check in periodically. periodically let your lips relax, let your eyes get soft. So it feels almost like your eye kind of sinks a little deeper into the socket. Take 2 more big breaths. Nice big inhale. Let it float you all the way up. Lean back into it. Unwind your legs. Oh, we'll take a moment to just jiggle before we do the swan on the other side. I have to take just a moment because swan is more of a back bend, whereas that pose is a little more of a forward bend. So we're still hitting the hip, but we're hitting the spine differently. See if that makes sense to you. Okay, so kind of find our way in on the other side. See how this goes. Again, you can always flip your pose upside down. It's a perfectly valid way to do this shape. Better for a lot of us, for sure. Hang in there, yogis. Just breathe and be present. For a wee bit longer, about another 30 seconds. Okay, so we're going to take a big breath. Let go with a big sigh. We're going to kind of lean into this hip. Bring that back leg around. All right, yogis. If you have an empty wall, you could do this next pose with your butt against the wall and your legs in a V up the wall, or over a couch, or you know, something like that, a bed, wherever you got nearby. I don't know where your home office is. But if you're, none of those things apply to you, or you just like to stay right where you are, you can take your legs out in a V. Now I have a blanket underneath my knees because that makes it a little bit easier on the back of my knees, because we're gonna go back into those inner thighs and fold ourselves forward here in the center. Again, not everybody's pelvis moves into this pose. So if yours doesn't, you can craft a little yoga Stonehenge and rest on it as best you can, or you can do the up the couch, up the wall, up the furniture version of this pose. So you lay on your back and just have your legs in this position. Gravity will do all the work. And we'll pause here for just a couple minutes with this little stretch in our inner thighs. So the inner thigh, particularly on the left side, this is the area of the meridian, acupuncture meridians for the liver. It's also, the kidneys are also in that same zone. We're kind of focusing on the liver because the outer hip, particularly on the right side, is the location for the gallbladder meridian. And the liver and the gallbladder are companions in Chinese medicine. Now, I am not a Chinese medical practitioner, so this is my interpretation of information that I have read. You should consult an actual medical practitioner should you wish to get this investigated further. But the liver and the gallbladder in Chinese medicine have different things. So they apply to the organs, the health of those organs, but they also have components where the mind kind of interacts with the body, or the heart interacts with the body. And so the emotions of anger and like kind of grumpiness are associated with these meridians when things are out of balance. So just the inability to settle and be content. And on the other end of the spectrum, when things are in the appropriate balance, we feel content and we feel stable and we feel able to connect to other people a little bit more. And so it helps us be more kind. So these two meridians are great ones to work with when you're kind of feeling out of sorts or a little bit grouchy. So for me anyway, if I pay too much attention to social media, I get a lot of like grouchy vibes. So I've been feeling like maybe we collectively all need to have a little like balance in our gallbladder meridian. Hopefully it's working for you guys as well. So we're gonna stay for just a little bit longer, about 30 more seconds. And then we'll come out of here and do a little breathing, a little movement. So contentment is a yoga practice. It is one of the what are called niyamas in the Yoga Sutras, one of the kind of disciplines that we apply to our lives. So take a big breath, come on up, lean back, bend your knees, and then we're gonna bring the legs together. And take a moment just to wiggle, and then we'll do a little moment just to sit with each other. So we have to actively practice contentment. It's not a state that just happens, right? We have to choose it. And so hopefully the yoga practice has given you a little like entryway into practicing contentment. So let's take a big breath together. Nice big inhale. Big deep sigh.